Ermák by Graf Leo Tolstoy. In the reign of Ivan Vassilevich the Terrible, there were the rich merchants, the Stroganovs, and they lived in Perm on the river Kama. They heard that along the river Kama, in a circle of 140 versts, there was good land. The soil had not been plowed for centuries, the forests had not been cut down for centuries. In the forests were many wild animals, and along the river fish lakes, and no one was living on that land, but only Tartars passed through it. The Stroganovs wrote a letter to the Tsar. Give us this land, and we will ourselves build towns there and gather people and settle them there, and will not allow the Tartars to pass through it. The Tsar agreed to it and gave them the land. The Stroganovs sent out clerks to gather people, and there came to them a large number of roving people. Whoever came received from the Stroganovs land, forest, and cattle, and no tenant pay was collected. All they had to do was to live, and in case of need, to go out in mass to fight the Tartars. Thus the land was settled by the Russian people. About 20 years passed. The Stroganovs grew richer yet, and that land, 140 versts around, was not enough for them. They wanted to have more land still. About 100 versts from them were high mountains, the Ural Mountains, and beyond them, they had heard, there was good land, and to that land there was no end. This land was ruled by a small Siberian prince, Kuchum by name. In former days, Kuchum had sworn allegiance to the Russian Tsar, but later he began to rebel, and he threatened to destroy Stroganov's towns. So the Stroganovs wrote to the Tsar. You have given us land, and we have conquered it and turned it over to you. Now the thievish Tsarling Kuchum is rebelling against you, and wants to take that land away and ruin us. Command us to take possession of the land beyond the Ural Mountains. We will conquer Kuchum, and will bring all his land under your rule. The Tsar assented and wrote back. If you have sufficient force, take the land away from Kuchum. Only do not entice many people away from Russia. When the Stroganovs got that letter from the Tsar, they sent out clerks to collect more people, and they ordered them to persuade mostly the Cossacks from the Volga and the Don to come. At that time, many Cossacks were roving along the Volga and the Don. They used to gather in bands of 2, 3, or 600 men, and to select an ataman, and to row down in barges, to capture ships and rob them, and for the winter they stayed in little towns on the shore. The clerks arrived at the Volga, and there they asked who the famous Cossacks of that region were. They were told. There are many Cossacks. It is impossible to live for them. There is Miska Cherkashenin and Saryazmin, but there is no fiercer one than Ermák Timofich, the Ottoman. He has 1,000 men, and not only the merchants and the people are afraid of him, but even the Tsarian army does not dare to cope with him. And the clerks went to Ermák the Ottoman, and began to persuade him to go to the Stroganovs. Ermák received the clerks, listened to their speeches, and promised to come with his people about the time of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin. Near the holiday of the Assumption, there came to the Stroganovs 600 Cossacks, with their Ottoman, Ermák Timofich. At first Stroganov sent them against the neighboring Tartars. The Cossacks annihilated them. Then, when nothing was doing, the Cossacks roved in the neighborhood and robbed. So Stroganov sent for Ermák and said, I will not keep you any longer, if you are going to be so wanton. But Ermák said, I do not like it myself, but I cannot control my people, they are spoiled. Give us work to do. So Stroganov said, Go beyond the Ural and fight Kuchum, and take possession of his land. The Tsar will reward you for it. And he showed the Tsar's letter to Ermák. Ermák rejoiced and collected his men and said, You are shaming me before my master. You are robbing without reason. If you do not stop, he will drive you away, and where will you go then? At the Volga there is a large Tsarian army. We shall be caught, and then we shall suffer for our old misdeeds. But if you feel lonesome, here is work for you. And he showed them the Tsar's letter, in which it said that Stroganov had been permitted to conquer land beyond the Ural. The Cossacks had a consultation and agreed to go. Ermák went to Stroganov, and they began to deliberate how they had best go. They discussed how many barges they needed, how much grain, cattle, guns, powder, lead, how many captive Tartar interpreters, and how many foreigners as masters of gunnery. Stroganov thought, Though it may cost me much, I must give them everything or else they will stay here and will ruin me. Stroganov agreed to everything, gathered what was needed, and fitted out Ermák and the Cossacks. On the 1st of September, the Cossacks rowed with Ermák up the river Chusovaya on 32 barges, with 12 men in each. For 4 days they rowed up the river, and then they turned into Serebryanka River. Beyond that point, it was impossible to navigate. They asked the guides, and learned that from there they had to cross the mountains and walk overland about 200 versts, and then the rivers would begin again. The Cossacks stopped, built a town, and unloaded all their equipment. They abandoned the boats, made carts, put everything upon them, and started overland across the mountains. All those places were covered with forest, and nobody was living there. They marched for about 10 days and struck the river Zhuravnya. Here they stopped again and made themselves boats. They loaded them and rowed down the river. They rowed 5 days, and then came more cheerful places, meadows, forests, lakes. There was a plenty of fish and of animals that had not been scared by hunters. They rowed another day and sailed into the river Chura. Along the Chura they came on Tartar people and towns. Ermák sent some Cossacks to take a look at a town, to see what it was like, and whether there was any considerable force in it. 20 Cossacks went there, and they frightened all the Tartars and seized the whole town and captured all the cattle. Some of the Tartars they killed, and others they brought back alive. Ermák asked the Tartars through his interpreters what kind of people they were, and under whose rule they were living. The Tartars said that they were in the Siberian kingdom, and that their king was Kuchum. Ermák let the Tartars go, but 3 of the more intelligent he took with him to show him the road. They rode on. The farther they rode, the larger did the river grow, and the farther they went, the better did the places become. They met more and more people, only they were not strong men, and all the towns that were near the river the Cossacks conquered. In one town, they captured a large number of Tartars and one old man who was held in respect. They asked him what kind of a man he was. He said, "I am Tauzik, a servant of my king, Kuchum, who has made me a commander in this town." Ermák asked Tauzik about his king, how far his city of Sibir was, whether Kuchum had a large force, whether he had much wealth. Tauzik told him everything. He said, "Kuchum is the first king in the world. His city of Sibir is the largest city in the world. In that city," he said, "there are as many people and as many cattle as there are stars in the heaven. There is no counting his force, and not all the kings of the world can conquer him." But Ermák said, "We Russians have come here to conquer your king and to take his city, and to put it into the hands of the Russian Tsar. We have a large force. Those who have come with me are only the advance guard. Those that are rowing down behind us in barges are numberless, and all of them have guns. Our guns pierce trees, not like your bows and arrows, just look." And Ermák fired at a tree and pierced it, and the Cossacks began to shoot on all sides. Tauzik in fright fell on his knees. Ermák said to him, "Go to your king Kuchum and tell him what you have seen. Let him surrender, and if he does not, we will destroy him." And he dismissed Tauzik. The Cossacks rode on. They sailed into the river Tabal and were getting nearer to the city of Sibir. They sailed up to the small river Babasin, and there they saw a small town on its bank, and around the town a large number of Tartars. They sent an interpreter to the Tartars to find out what kind of people they were. The interpreter returned and said, "That is Kuchum's army that has gathered there. The leader of that army is Kuchum's own son-in-law, Mametkul. He has commanded me to tell you that you must return, or else he will destroy you." Ermák gathered his Cossacks, landed on the bank, and began to shoot at the Tartars. The moment the Tartars heard the shooting, they began to run. The Cossacks ran after them and killed some and captured others. Mametkul barely escaped. The Cossacks sailed on. They sailed into a broad, rapid river, the Irtish. Down Irtish River they sailed for a day and came to a fair town, and there they stopped. The Cossacks went to the town. As they were coming near, the Tartars began to shoot their arrows, and they wounded 3 Cossacks. Then Ermák sent an interpreter to tell the Tartars that they must surrender the town, or else they would all be killed. The interpreter went, and he returned and said, "Here lives Kuchum's servant, Adik Mirza Kachara. He has a large force, and he says that he will not surrender the town." Ermák gathered the Cossacks and said, "Boys, if we do not take this town, the Tartars will rejoice and will not let us pass on. The more we strike them with terror, the easier will it be. Land all and attack them all at once." So they did. There were many Tartars there, and they were brave. When the Cossacks rushed at them, the Tartars began to shoot their arrows. They covered the Cossacks with them. Some were killed and some wounded. The Cossacks became enraged, and when they got to the Tartars, they killed all they could lay their hands on. In this town the Cossacks found much property, cattle, rugs, furs, and honey. They buried the dead, rested themselves, took away much property, and sailed on. They did not sail far when they saw on the shore, like a city, an endless number of troops, and the whole army surrounded by a ditch and the ditch protected by timber. The Cossacks stopped, they deliberated. Ermák gathered a circle about him. "Well, boys, what shall we do?" The Cossacks were frightened. Some said that they ought to sail past, while others said that they ought to go back. And they looked gloomy and began to scold Ermák. They said, "Why did you bring us here? Already a few of ours have been killed, and many have been wounded, and all of us will perish here." They began to weep. But Ermák said to his subataman, Ivan Koltso, "Well, Vanya, what do you think?" And Koltso said, "What do I think? If they do not kill us today, they will tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, we shall die anyway on the oven. In my opinion, we ought to go out on the shore and rush in a body against the Tartars. Maybe God will give us victory." Ermák said, "You are a brave man, Vanya. That is what must be done. Oh, you boys, you are not Cossacks, but old women. All you're good for is to catch sturgeon and frighten Tartar women. Can't you see for yourselves? If we turn back, we shall be destroyed, and if we stay here, they will destroy us. How can we go back? After a little work, it will come easier. Listen, boys, my father had a strong mare. Downhill she would pull, and on an even place she would pull. But when it came to going uphill, she became stubborn and turned back, thinking that it would be easier. But my father took a club and belabored her with it. She twisted and tugged and broke the whole cart. My father unhitched her from the cart and gave her a terrible whacking. If she had pulled the cart, she would have suffered no torment. So it is with us, boys. There is only one thing left for us to do, and that is to make straight for the Tartars." The Cossacks laughed and said, "Timofich, you are evidently more clever than we are. You have no business to ask us fools. Take us where you please. A man does not die twice, and one death cannot be escaped." And Ermák said, "Listen, boys, this is what we shall do. They have not yet seen us all. Let us divide into 3 parts. Those in the middle will march straight against them, and the other 2 divisions will surround them on the right and on the left. When the middle detachment begins to walk toward them, they will think that we are all there, and so they will leap forward. Then we will strike them from the sides. That's the way, boys. If we beat these, we shall not have to be afraid of anybody. We shall ourselves be kings." And so they did. When the middle detachment with Ermák advanced, the Tartars screamed and leaped forward. Then they were attacked by Ivan Koltso on the right and by Meshtriakov the Ottoman on the left. The Tartars were frightened and ran. The Cossacks killed a great many of them. After that, nobody dared to oppose Ermák. And thus he entered the very city of Sibir, and there Ermák settled down as though he were a king. Then kinglets came to see Ermák, to bow to him. Tartars began to settle down in Sibir, and Kuchum and his son-in-law Mametkul were afraid to go straight at him, but kept going around in a circle, wondering how they might destroy him. In the spring, during high water, the Tartars came running to Ermák and said, "Mametkul is again going against you. He has gathered a large army and is making a stand near the river Vagay." Ermák made his way over rivers, swamps, brooks, and forests, stole up with his Cossacks, rushed against Mametkul, killed a large number of Tartars, and took Mametkul alive and brought him to Sibir. After that, there were only a few unruly Tartars left, and Ermák went that summer against those that had not yet surrendered. And along the Irtish and the Ob, Ermák conquered so much land that one could not march around it in 2 months. When Ermák had conquered all that land, he sent a messenger to the Stroganovs and a letter. "I have taken Kuchum city," he said, "and have captured Mametkul, and have brought all the people here under my rule. Only I have lost many Cossacks. Send people to us that we may feel more cheerful. There is no end to the wealth in this country." He sent to them many costly furs, fox, marten, and sable furs. 2 years passed after that. Ermák was still holding Sibir, but no aid came from Russia, and few Russians were left with Ermák. One day the Tartar Karacha sent a messenger to Ermák, saying, "We have surrendered to you, but now the Nagays are oppressing us. Send your brave men to aid us. We shall together conquer the Nagays, and we swear to you that we shall not insult your brave men." Ermák believed their oath and sent 40 men under Ivan Koltso. When these 40 men came there, the Tartars rushed against them and killed them, so there were still fewer Cossacks left. Another time, some Bukhara merchants sent word to Ermák that they were on their way to the city of Sibir with goods, but that Kuchum had taken his stand with an army and would not let them pass through. Ermák took with him 50 men and went out to clear the road for the Bukhara merchants. He came to the Irtish River but did not find the Bukharans. He remained there overnight. It was a dark night and it rained. The Cossacks had just lain down to sleep when suddenly the Tartars rushed out and threw themselves on the sleepy men and began to strike them down. Ermák jumped up and began to fight. He was wounded in the hand. He ran toward the river, the Tartars after him. He threw himself into the river. That was the last time he was seen. His body was not recovered, and no one found out how he died. The following year came the Tsar's army, and the Tartars were pacified.